With that, we bring in CBS Sports WNBA analyst Ayala to break it all down. Game one. And listen, we were treated, right, to amazing theater in this game, Erica. When you think about how this game changed from that first half where the Phoenix Mercury couldn't miss from three to the second, what really stands out to you about the way the Aces were able to come away with the victory?
Things difficult for Phoenix. If you look at the turnovers, 12 turnovers total for the Mercury. That led to 20, Chris, 20 points off of turnovers. You also have to think about what Jewell Loyd was able to do in the first half, and then things heating up for Evans a little bit later in the game to the tune of 41 bench points for the Vegas Aces to just 16 for Phoenix. We saw players, key players from both teams go down, maybe get banged up. Thought we would see someone maybe exit the game with injury. As of yet, we're waiting to see if anything for Sammy Whitcomb or Chelsea Gray. I could literally go down the list of players, unfortunately, that got banged up in this game. But the fact that both of these teams really stuck it out, had that grit, but it was the poise and it was the defensive mindset of the Vegas Aces that turned the tide and got them this win.
So it got them the win, and we saw that last possession, right? Tremendous stand-up, straight-up defense. They elected not to foul, up three. What did you make of the Mercury electing to not use their timeout when clearly they were flustered once the Aces brought that pressure?
And that's just something that will happen with experience. You go into a huddle and you talk about these things, but when you get blitzed there, as you said, suffocating defense, sometimes those things are not top of mind, or you lose track of how much time you actually have, what the situation is. And I think Phoenix got caught in the action and in the shot they were trying to look for, instead of slowing things down just a little bit. But again, that comes from experience. We talked about it earlier in the day, Chris. There is finals experience on that Phoenix Mercury squad, 100%. And there's finals experience on the Vegas Aces squad. The difference is there's more experience together for the Aces, and it's in moments like that where sometimes shorthand or just knowing where your teammate is going to be, knowing what options are available, that can make the difference in tight games like this, and tight games that I'm expecting to see throughout this WNBA Finals.
Oh yeah, we could get 6 more games of that. I'm all in, all right? Sign me up. Now, a lot of times in these series, when you have superstars like A'ja Wilson and Alyssa Thomas, they cancel each other out. And they didn't have, their A-plus games, especially A'ja. I mean, Alyssa Thomas almost had a triple-double. But when you talk about the bench, I know you touched on a little bit with Dana Evans and Jewell Loyd. What did you like about the way they found their spots? They didn't force the issue, but they rose to the occasion when the Aces needed. Because Jackie Young, let's be honest, she was balling that series against Indiana. She didn't have a great game, but the bench players step up here.
And that's what you need your players to do. I mean, if you think about the key players from the bench for either team, what they're expected to do is what they do best. When you have a team that is built like both of these teams, and you have superstars, all-stars, again, veterans with championships, you need the right elements to complement their game. And we saw that in Loyd and Evans, obviously, tonight. Whitcomb has done that in the past. One of those players that got banged up earlier, so we'll see how that works. But when you have A'ja Wilson, you talk about, maybe not her most gaudy numbers, she still scored 21 points and had the most difficult defensive assignment. And so when you have A'ja Wilson that can play suffocating defense on Alyssa Thomas, and because she trusts her teammates in Evans tonight and Loyd to take up any slack that she might not be able to get her shots the way she wants to offensively. That's how you play team basketball. You buy into the overall goal. And that's what I saw here from this Aces squad. So you didn't need, again, gaudy numbers from Wilson, even though I still think 21 is pretty solid. And you didn't need 15, 20 points from Jackie Young, as long as that meant they could do what they needed to do, expend that energy defensively.
Speaking about defensive energy, you talked about just how terrific, A'ja Wilson is as a defender against Alyssa Thomas. AT had 9 assists, but she also had 5 turnovers. Kahleah Copper, right? She had 18 points, I believe, in the first half alone, had 5 threes. She ended up with 21 points. What did the Aces do schematically to prevent her from going off for all 4 quarters?
Well, I think it's more of what we saw towards the end of the game. You start getting into the body. You make Kalia Copper uncomfortable. You make it difficult for her teammates to be able to get to her in action on ball or off ball screens. I think that's what you saw. The Vegas Aces, when they did have to rotate and switch, they were ready for it. You even, saw that again in the last play with a player like Kia Stokes, who, again, sometimes can be an offensive liability, but was the perfect weapon for the Aces and knew the assignment, knew the defensive assignment. This just was an Aces team for me that I saw locked in, but also committed to what the defensive plan was against this Phoenix Mercury squad.
So as we look ahead to Game 2 on Sunday, Erica, what do the Mercury need to do to tie the series up and prevent the Aces from going up 2-0 heading to Phoenix?
Well, obviously the turnovers are a big part of that. I think that you have to maybe give Alyssa Thomas a little more time off the ball. I was wondering why we hadn't seen earlier today, why we hadn't seen teams maybe press Thomas a little bit more, pick her up full court, because once she gets a full head of steam, there are not many players that are willing, let alone able to stop her when she starts moving through, and across the timeline. And I think you saw that Vegas was able to do that. So if you take that away and you get Thomas, can you set her up in the half court? In half court a little bit, maybe do some things differently when it comes to who's handling the ball. Then you run the chance of for Phoenix not having Alyssa Thomas facilitate, and she's not a spot up shooter like other people. But that's when you can maybe run actions through Ka and Satu a little bit more, get the ball moving, and then just have Alyssa Thomas, be able to facilitate at will, play a little bit on the block, and open up lanes so you can have some of your guards maybe get in there. But I think that you have to be able to, you want the ball in Alyssa Thomas's hands on the one hand, but you also have to have players prepared to move through other actions if and when that's not available. Because right now I think that A'ja Wilson is playing great defense on Thomas, and she is able to stretch out, even though usually she's usually guarding forwards on the block.
Yeah, A'ja Wilson, a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, and we saw it in so many different aspects of this game. If you're the Aces, right, you get the win, so obviously you learn a lot from different things that you didn't do so well in the first half. What do they need to clean up? I know it was a 3-point game, right, but what do they need to clean up to make sure that they can go up 2-0?
Well, we talked about their defensive effort, and while it was there in pockets early in the game, they really refined it in the second half. So if I'm Vegas, they're probably going to want to do a lot of what they did in that second half, just do it sooner, right? Be able to get that going earlier. I think you still are going to want to see if you can get more from Chelsea Gray. Again, she was one of those players, it looked like perhaps she rolled an ankle, was able to come back into the game. But, you want a little bit more there. Melissa Smith was one of a few players, right, that wasn't hitting from the line. When you have those opportunities with the shot, with the clock stopped, you want to be able to sink those free throws. And, that's something else that as we continue on in this series, are free throws going to be an issue with the physicality in this game? I think so. So that's another thing I'd be mindful of for both teams, but it seemed to plague Vegas a little more.
Yeah, definitely did. But they come out with the W, 89-86 in Game 1 of the WNBA Finals. Erica Ayala, we always appreciate your insight. So Sunday will be Game 2, 3 Eastern on ABC in Vegas. And then we're headed to the desert, baby, for Games 3 and 4.